couple worm-like creatures.
And they come across a goblin that is charging them.
When she sees it start to lift up off the air.
Happy hour. So listen, Rook still has a little issue on when we're live and when we're happy hour, but I think that's just because he's always happy.
I had my mic muted when I was all miserable when it said, and we're live.
Anyway, welcome in everyone to another Hit Points Not Required happy hour. Woo! I'm happy. Y'all happy? Good. We are.
Chuck knows better than to wait for an answer.
Ain't my first rodeo.
So happy.
We are here to talk a bunch of nonsense, hang out, enjoy some adult beverages, and eventually, possibly, perhaps, more than likely, get around to talking some TTRPG topic eventually. But in the meantime, before any of that starts, let's talk our Patreon. Right now, you can see the entire 2-part 10 Candles, A Darkness Over Long Knife, and enjoy all of that before anyone else if you're in our Patreon. Also, we do still have some Rook's Red Cup available. Please join. Let me know if you want that or a Bitch Militia t-shirt. And yes, as always, hit points are not required to have a good time, but there are a lot of supplies that will make a world of difference at your game night. And our sponsor, Pangea Gaming, has a ton of those in stock, from things like source books, handbooks, monster manuals. Hell, if it's printed, they can probably get you reading it. And reading is fundamental. Look, it doesn't matter whether it's D&D, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, whatever, they have it. They have dice. They have painted and unpainted miniatures. Telling you, painting party is coming up. Maybe in our Patreon, we are going to have a Hit Points Not Required painting party. Put it on the calendar. Anyway, they have
Put it on the calendar somewhere. We don't know where. Just
somewhere.
Like a sticky note so you can move it later.
Exactly. We'll figure it out. Hey, you know what? Put it on your calendar and let us know where you put it. And we'll see if we can make that happen, okay? Just come over to our Discord and let us know.
They just got in a new line of paints, Chuck, that's it's called Turbo Dork, and they're the third store in the state to be able to sell it, market it, carry it, whatever, vendor it. They're the third vendor. They're pretty awesome, man.
They're so... Rook was sending me pictures. They're so awesome.
There are so many colors. They are so cool. They've got the color changing paints where depending on the way the light hits the paint, it changes. And there's such a huge number and line of them. And then they've got pearlescent paints and some of the best... hang on, I'm nerding out just a little bit here, but I'm a big fan of Blood Bowl, and so I need my armor colors, and they have some of the most awesome metallic colors I have ever seen in 30 years of doing this dumb shit. And I'm telling you, this Turbo Dork stuff, it's pretty awesome. So I'm excited about it. And Aries Starfire, one of our miniature painters, is super excited about it.
And I'm going to tell you right now that Rook will be not only sharing those pictures with Violet, but we'll be putting them on our Discord. So if you want to see what these paints look like, hop on over to our Discord and then hop on over to PangeaGaming.com. Follow the link in our YouTube description or in our Twitch chat or if you're on a podcast consuming this in a audio only format now or in the future when we get around to doing that sort of thing, then we'll be in there somehow too. Just go to PangeaGaming.com. They will get you your painting supplies in cool metallic color changing colors, and they will ship it domestically or internationally for those of you elsewhere around the world. Sorry,
much
I got a little excited.
Yeah.
There. Not quite as excited as Rook painting his Blood Bowl miniatures, but still, there was a bit
I
of
don't have any
excitement.
Blood Bowl miniatures to paint it. I do. I have a whole team that needs to be painted. Shit, I forgot all about that. It's like laying in my closet somewhere. It's the end
And
of
Rook will
days.
paint those and provide pictures of the painted finals on our Discord exclusively for you lucky people. Maybe it'll be a first look at them in action with some video on our Patreon, but you'll have to join to find that out. Anyway, one more announcement.
So many announcements.
I know there's just a lot of news and stuff. We've got a lot going on this channel. Today is April 14th. You know what that means? We are 1 month away. May 14th, we will be dropping the first episode of our studio shoot, where you can catch a band of misfits doing whatever the house asks without asking questions.
Mhm.
Shit. Mhm.
Now, does anybody have any questions?
What was that reaction?
Shit.
Why?
Trauma.
The trauma coming back to you.
Make a strength saving throw.
That was the one time that Jacob couldn't get me. I had all 14s all the way across like my whole stat block. I had no weak
dump
saving
stat.
throws.
We
Oh,
Well,
there
still
was no
got you
aid in there
anyway. We
He-
won't talk about how, but he still got you anyway.
He got me.
It's gonna happen.
That's for sure.
It's gonna happen. All right, announcements are done, but I have one more thing before we get into our real nonsense and ask how you're doing. I have a lawn update. Not Rook's lawn, not even my lawn, but I had an interesting story that I would like to relay with you. I was talking with someone the other day, and she had recently procured a house, I assume with actual money, but I can't be sure. Not my responsibility.
We don't ask questions.
We don't ask questions.
We don't follow banking laws here on Hit Points Not Required.
And I was checking in with her on how things were going with the new house, and she said, "Well, I had to mow my lawn the other day because I got a notice from the city saying the lawn was too high and it was a danger and they were going to be fined or whatever, probably dropping property values or whatever." So this person was very happy to say that they got a mower and they were mowing their lawn. The only thing they had to say was it was an electric mower, and it took them several batteries worth of power.
That's what
to
I'm
mow
fucking
Wow.
saying. That's
your
what I'm
lawn.
talking about.
This
That's
is
interesting.
how it is, I guess.
I'm like,
So
I
were they
feel
in
the
the
same.
city or outside of the city?
oh, they're in the greater Atlanta area, so you know.
I'm
it's
just
all-
curious
it's all
how
part of a
many
sprawling city.
batteries it took them, because I can't imagine if they're in the greater metro area of Atlanta that they have that large of a yard, right?
It's probably not that large of a yard. I haven't seen the actual yard yet. When I do, I'll scout it out for you and take some pictures and post them to the Discord.
Yes,
Um,
please put
and-
pictures of someone else's
This is
home. on our
yard.
Discord.
Yeah. No, not the
We'll,
just the yard.
we'll
Just the
Google
yard.
Earth it
Correct.
and put that shit on
just give
Discord.
us their full name and address.
We'll also give their latitude and longitude
Longitude, yeah.
in case
you can
anyone
go
wants to
over there.
commit war crimes against these
Oh,
poor
no.
people.
Wow. Here I was thinking that somebody might want to go over there and help mow the lawn.
Oh, yes, that too.
That too.
But it did get me thinking. I was commiserating. I was like, we've heard these things happen before. This is not a new story, but I really do think anyone that has to mow their lawn with an electric mower, you know what? tonight you drink on the
Oh,
house.
yes.
That's fair. Yes.
All right. That was my fun little tidbit of a story to relate. So how y'all doing? What's happened this week?
Mowed the first mowing with an electric mower.
How many batteries did it take?
A lot.
Hmm.
Two big ones, two little ones is the answer to that question. It's not
I'll
so
have to-
bad when it's cold out. When it gets hot out, they don't last very long at all.
We will have to compare battery sizes on the next episode of Happy Hour
Why?
to see whether
Okay.
these are big batteries or little batteries that
Mhm.
are being
Anybody that uses electric lawn equipment knows what I'm talking about. They only come in two sizes, the big ones and the little ones.
Yeah. That sounds like there's a market there maybe for a medium.
You know they make
size.
a riding lawnmower that uses one of these batteries too. I can't imagine you could mow more than like 3 rows with it before it's like, no, I'm done, boss. Change me out.
Has a little
The-
display that says exactly that.
Interesting
And then-
point of
And then
note.
5 guys come out and jack up your mower, change your battery. Go, go, go.
My next door neighbor has the same lawnmower that I have, but it's a different model year.
Okay.
So his uses 2 of the small batteries.
Mhm.
And then mine doesn't even have 2 slots in it for batteries. It just has the one, but it came with a much larger amp hour battery, right? He was like, "Man, I wish I had some of those." I don't know what to tell you, bro. He has not nearly the size yard that I have. So,
Have you thought about making a communal pool with your batteries?
I
Because you probably
did
don't mow
actually
at the same
tell
time.
him. I did actually tell him, man, if you run out of battery, just come over and grab mine because he never mows at the same time I do. So, I did tell him that, but that was 8 months ago now, 6 months ago, something like that. He hasn't mowed his first mow yet. But we
Well.
were the first to mow after the monsoon that we have been living through for the last couple of weeks. And we did, in fact, start the neighborhood mowing campaign as soon as we started. Of course,
Everybody else.
as soon as we started, then someone else came out, and then someone else came. We shamed everyone, guilted everyone into mowing their lawns.
Yeah. Is there like a limitation? Like, a lot of times you get a quote for something. This quote is good for 6 months. Was that battery share
Wow.
offer like good for 6 months?
I know
Is
they're
there-
all right. They're the only neighbor we have. I mean, our neighbors aren't bad. I live in not a cul-de-sac, a double cul-de-sac. I don't know what that's called. Like you can go left into a court or right into a court when you enter our domain. And we definitely routinely circle the wagons when outsiders come into play.
Is that just like a double dead end, a dead end? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I
what
feel like
it
it's
is.
still just a cul-de-sac. I think it's
Yeah.
just
It's
a
like-
It's just
differently
a weirdly shaped
oriented
one.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, weirdly shaped. I guess it probably is. We won't talk about what the shape looks like.
No. No. Moving on. What's going on with Violet?
Nothing.
Good talk. Glad you had something to share with the group.
Mhm.
So, fantastic.
Baldur's Gate patch 8 is coming out soon.
Yeah.
See, there is something. Are you looking forward to anything specific in
Death
this?
clerics. Yes, I am. I certainly am. In fact, that thinking about the death cleric I want to run for Baldur's Gate was a significant inspiration for the character I played in our Dauntless one shot.
Oh.
D, who was also a death cleric. Yeah, that was came out of some of my thinking about the character I want to play when this patch 8 drops. So go ahead and watch the Dauntless one shot. And
Please,
then
we'll put a link to it up here. No, we won't. I don't know why I ever do that. We
you
never
could
do.
make your own version of D in your Baldur's Gate game because she's very cool.
And likes kids
She does.
and hates mothers.
I don't know about that. I think that's situational. Some of them.
I think maybe just more attuned to how fragile life is at an early age and how quickly death can come.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you're ready to segue, but I actually feel like that
Speaking of
very
clerics,
unintentionally. Speaking of clerics, and like, yeah, like an important part of building that character was thinking about the deity that she follows and how that affected the way she thinks about things. It's a pretty important part of her character.
Oh God, there's our segue. So we are talking this week after we have spent the last 2 weeks debating whether there really is any good or evil, or whether alignments really are necessary in our games anymore. Now we come to the crux of the matter, the overarching thing in our game. And I think this applies beyond D&D, but we're going to at least start talking about it in the framework of Dungeons and Dragons. And that's gods in our world. How we think about them, how they are portrayed, how DMs can use them to further plots, how we can use them to really define our characters, and how we could use them to maybe go beyond what we were originally thinking our characters would be and become more religious or more questioning, or what our relationship ends up being. So I turn it over to you. When you're playing, starting off in the terms of when you're playing a character, when you have a character that has some sort of relationship about gods, how do you like to think about those gods? And does it matter whether you're going into a world that uses existing gods that you know, there's a new pantheon, or the DM says, I don't know, whatever. You tell me what god you want to do.
I'm generally unconcerned about the pantheon. All I care about is the one god that my character is associated with. I want to know that one backwards and forwards. Not super concerned about the rest of the pantheon. That's how I approach it.
Fair.
But I mean, if I'm playing, cleric is my favorite class to play. I love clerics. And if I'm playing a cleric, or if I'm playing like a paladin or anything else that had a specific connection to a deity, for me, at least as a player, it's really, really important to think about that deity and who they are and what they do and why that character is devoted to that deity. Like, how did that come to be? Like, that is a big part of creating the character for me. If they're going to be like a cleric or whatever, is why are they a cleric? Like, why are they doing this? How did they come to be here? Is always the biggest question for me about any character I make. How did they come to be here at this moment when this game starts? How did they get here? And so, yeah, that's it. It's really important for me to have a good understanding of who the deity is, at least from the character's perspective.
Mm-hmm. Brooke?
Chuck, you keep jumping in and out of the stream,
Oh,
but not out of.
I blame God.
You blame who
they're
there?
smiting you. Is that what's happening?
Maybe
Yeah. They are
you might
taking
want to. You might want to
name
reload. Chuck.
vain.
Yeah.
first.
No one can hear you, man. All right, now that he's gone.
Oh, he's back.
Can they hear me now?
Much better for the moment, anyway. I'll let you know.
Fair. Well, I blame it on the gods. Gods are striking me down for not going to Seder the other night. I'm not not
Happy
giving them their
Passover,
proper
anyone
due.
who celebrates. But, yeah.
Anyway, Rook, talk to us about you and characters and gods.
Interestingly enough, one of my favorite characters that I've played, I guess I would say recently being relative, I suppose, is a druid character that has a very close relationship with a god, um, as opposed to, I guess, a close relationship with nature. I like to play the character as a very young half drow street urchin, unhoused child, if you will, and mother speaks to him. The mother being Loth, of course. And then this pulling dichotomy between Loth trying to convince him to do not so great things, and then the idea that he just generally is a good, pretty innocent little kid at the heart of things. But also like a moon druid that turns into a spider and has big mandible mouth with primal savagery and eats people and things like that too, because that's what cute little kids do.
The choice of Lolth, was that because you wanted to play a drow character? You playing a drow character because you wanted to have this relationship with the concept you had of that particular god? Again, a published god,
Sure.
a well-known
Right. Published,
god,
well-known god, right? Yeah. I think a lot having to do with being half drow, and just that's the background, right? And kind of the idea is that you could think of things in a lot of different lights. I don't want to talk about super tropey backstories as orphanage to keep me away specifically from drow culture. That's kind of the idea. Or that culture of the Underdark, Mimza, the deep dark shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of intrinsic that's the thing is, Loth in particular is trying to pull me back into the Underdark versus the world trying to show that there's better places than, that stereotypical drow culture in society.
So do you in this instance view Lolth as evil?
No, because I've not gotten to go deep enough into exploring the character arc ever yet to really figure out that the things that are being whispered in my ear aren't always the best things to be doing.
And that's an interesting question. That's something that I like to look at myself. I generally look at the gods later on and last. I usually have a character concept, and whether it's god related, whether it's a cleric, whether it's a paladin, I really don't think about class until I've explored who this person is, and then plug them into a class at some point in time. And sometimes I've played characters plugged into multiple classes, right? But same thing with gods. They can have relationship with gods in all different ways. And I think that's the interesting part, is figuring out what that relationship is with the gods. I think we typically, in terms of D&D especially, think of, oh, you're a cleric, you're a priest, you love your god, you have this great relationship with your god. And a lot of times I like to go in a different direction with things like that. Oh, well, I've got a sort of begrudging relationship with my god. They keep asking me to do these things and I'll do them, but is it right? Is my, questioning your faith sort of thing, which I think is perfectly allowed. You don't have to be totally in line with your god. It's probably almost impossible, if you think about it, to be totally in line with a god, because their minds should be to the point of being unfathomable by a human mind or a mortal mind. And so their goals and their endeavors and their ways of achieving things are way beyond what we're doing. It's not just straight do this and get the result you want, and it's just that easy. No, they're playing multi-level dimensional chess while we are trying to figure out what a checker is, in that analogy. And so, it can be, it should be a changing, fluctuating thing as we go. And so the gods, even if they're the traditional gods like a Lolth, or a Mistra, I have a couple of characters that are knowledge based and looking for that knowledge or whatever, but also sitting there questioning, hey, why is knowledge forbidden? Why was this stuff not here? Why, you're the god of knowledge? Why don't you just give us all of knowledge in one book? We'll read it and we'll be done. It's just too easy. We need to experience it for whatever reason. But that brings me to my next thought of, as a DM, how do you want to manage, or how do you like to manage the gods in your worlds so that people aren't like, hey, you're a god, you know the answer, just give me the answer. Why do I got to go on this quest? Why do I got to look for stuff and learn stuff on my own? Where do we have that line, and what happens with the gods in your worlds?
I mean, for me personally, I've never run anything where the gods were really that interactive, where you would even have an opportunity to ask a question like that. And to me, I feel like that makes sense to me. Like, why would the gods be sitting and chatting with you about whatever the fuck petty thing you want? Like, why would they do that? Like, they're doing other things. They're not really that concerned with you. Like, you are doing things for them in an abstract sense, not because they are like personally requesting it of you. You are doing it more generally in service of them as a god. They're probably not that aware of you, frankly. That's usually my approach to it. And if somehow you were to like ever make some sort of like, why don't you just do this? You're the god, like you can do whatever. Like, I don't know that they would deign to even respond to a question like that. Like, why? How dare you even ask? Like, fuck you. Like, who are you?
Like, I think it's very interesting because I hear all the time people talk about campaigns that dive into the hells and interact with demons and devils and the like, right? Or dally in there and see some sort of demon or devil hierarchy and like work their way up the food chain in some kind of capacity, whether it's in service or fighting bigger and badder demons, things like that. I hear about that a lot, but I don't hear about people, back in the day in the Planescape campaign setting, you started in the middle of the outer world, right? And then you could go wherever you wanted. But we don't often hear about people going to the celestial planes very much. That's
not as
definitely,
much, certainly, as the hells.
Definitely a much rarer kind of idea. But I do like to ask the question, how exactly as DMs, how do we form interactions between or faith? How do we handle faith in the deities, and how is it different than a patron and a warlock?
That is kind of, I think, what I was getting at and what I was saying. Like, that's how I think of it anyway. Like, a warlock patron is a much more direct relationship because you have made a specific deal with this person. There's an exchange involved and that sort of thing. Whereas I don't, at least the way I've always run my characters and deities when I'm DMing, it's not like an explicit deal between you and a god when you choose to like be a cleric or something like that. You have just chosen to devote yourself to that god. The god didn't ask you to. Like, they don't need to, really. Like, that's just a choice that you made. it's not I don't usually think of it as the same thing at all. I rarely consider like a direct relationship, like a back and forth in that way. The god is more representative of something of more abstract, and yes, in some situations, especially as a character levels up and is doing bigger things in the world, having big impacts, becoming more powerful, then they may have get more notice from the god. But in general, the god just kind of is, and a person chooses to follow their teachings, or serve their what they believe that god's intentions are, not because the god asked them to, but just because that's what they're doing. To me, that's the difference. It's like a direct back and forth exchange versus just one person just sort of devoting themselves to something with
Yeah.
no real explicit exchange.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a fine line in there. I mean, the gods have to want something, right? I mean,
Do they?
they generally do. I mean, there's wanting nothing and just existing is not very interesting in a story mechanic for a being. And if the story is not going to be focused on the relationship with the god, it's fine, and you're basically just using the mechanics that the god bestows you powers, and that's why you're doing this devotion, and that's why you pray every morning to get your new powers and all of that. But I think there are interesting story opportunities by attributing thoughts and patterns and something to the gods. For example, I often see in a lot of campaigns that, hey, as a DM, I need to move the story along, and I've got a cleric, I've got a paladin, I've got somebody devoted to a god. That god will give you a vision in your dreams that you should be going in this direction, right? It's an easy thing to get it to go along in that route. But I think it could also be interesting in a story mechanic to have the god testing you for whatever reason. Whether
I was going to say those dreams can often come, or nightmares, if you will, come when you're doing things counterproductive to the way the god thinks you should be.
Sure. There's definitely some form of communication in that, but there are also, like I said, there's also possibilities. Gods could just be in the Old Testament sense of testing you. I just wanted to see if you would do that, or how far you would go to be loyal to me. And I gave you this quest not because it was important or anything like that. Just wanted to see if you would do it. You can do things and be interactive and test the character's faith in certain ways, because that's what it is. God, it ends up being a certain amount of faith, a lot easier than in our real world faith, where we get very little from it in a tangible sense, versus, hey, I have faith in this god, I can cast Cure Wounds. That's proof that I have faith in a god, the god exists, and I can channel their power, right? But but that relationship and that faith tested in a story format, when you're developing an arc, can be very interesting, and creating a character that already has questions about their faith. Hey, I've been doing this. Why am I doing this? This God, what has this God ever really done for me? Is interesting.
Well, I think to me, I'm really a lot less interested in the god as a character itself. Interacting with like the player character or whatever, and much more interested in just what the player character thinks about the god and what it means to them. Like, I don't really care that much about the god itself so much as, to me, for me, it's more of it's a part of the character, not the external existence of the god is not as important. It's more about how it factors into who the character is. Take for example, D, the Death Cleric that I ran for Dauntless. I basically took this idea of this Death Cleric as almost like a writing prompt, and like built around where I really wanted her deity to be Jergal, which was also taken from Baldur's Gate. And I did research because this was, a
Because I
known
gave
sort of
homework before the game.
yes.
I was like, no, this ain't 5e Forgotten Realms. This is second
Yes.
edition Forgotten Realms. We're like 400 years ago, yo.
And I did my research, and the thing that was really interesting was that he had been the god of death and then sort of handed over the reins to other people who took over as the god of death, but he sort of still stuck around as sort of the scribe, keeping the accounting of the dead and that sort of thing. But he didn't want to be the big boss anymore, which just on the face of it, I also just love that. Like, nah, I don't need to be a god anymore. You guys handle the big stuff. I'm just gonna sit here and quietly do my work. Like, I just thought that was the best thing ever. But as a result of that, one of the things is, there very, very few people still acknowledge this god. And some of the few that did are people who, say, for example, work in mortuaries and things like that, and deal with like sort of the business of death. And so Dee's whole backstory wound up being that she grew up in her family's business was in a mortuary. and so much of like, and she was a tiefling, and so like her parents took it as like a sign that she was born a tiefling because they're human parents, and like there was a whole thing, but like, and none of that obviously came up in the game, but it very much informed her behavior in the game.
Mhm.
And the way that she was connected to her family, and the way that the god that she followed and the kind of cleric that she was very specific to like trying to make her family proud and that sort of thing, and the importance of that to her, and like those aspects of her character all came out of thinking about the deity to start. And like it feels like a long walk, but there you can follow that thread from starting with this old god of death that nobody worships anymore, all the way down to how Dee reacts to seeing a child abandoned on the road. And like there's a lot of connective tissue there, and starting with the way I conceived of this deity and why this character follows this deity, like dictated aspects of her behavior in the game. And so that is very much how I like to think about the gods for a character. Like, what is that faith about for them, and how does that affect them as a person? I don't care if they ever interact with that god. That is very secondary to me.
Sure. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a multitude of ways in which you can have a relationship with a god, and it doesn't have to be just the straight, I have this relationship with this god and this god bestows me powers, or I feel this way. You can have a contentious relationship with your god. You can lose your faith and find your faith again. What is the story that you're telling about, and how does that evolve? And do you find out that you thought this god was one thing, but it turns out that they have a reputation for something, but they're just a piece of shit, and all the gods are just pieces of shit, just like us, with a lot more power. Right?
That's another thing too, is I often think of D&D gods as really just the most powerful creature type. It's like they're just another like creature type, basically. And the most powerful one we know of, we call gods in the game.
And it definitely varies from setting to setting as to what being a god means. But especially in the Forgotten Realms, like every couple hundred years, somebody just becomes level 20 and is like, yo, bitch, I'm the new god of this, or I'm the new god of this, right? Like, that's just kind of the way it works. For example, when Jurgle wanted to step down, he assigned all of his death duties to Merkel, Ball, and Bane, right? And then, what was it? The Time of Troubles, I believe they called it, or whatever, comes along, and Cyric kills them all and becomes the single god of death. And Jurgle's pretty pissed about all it. Like, there's, but Cyric was just a dude, went and killed all of them and took their power. And that happens a lot.
There's a lot of that soap opera drama among the gods, for sure.
like sands in an hourglass.
So are the gods of art. No. There's a million ways to think about that, and I think as a DM, thinking about who the gods are, as a DM, especially doing world building, I should say, if you're DMing, a canned adventure, something that's pre-written somewhere. Okay, what is this world? What is the better you know it? Great. And if you need help with D&D Second Edition Forgotten Realms stuff, Rook is always available to help coach you through. But when you're doing your own world building, thinking about what the gods are, how they are, what the people overall relationship with gods are, how they feel about things, and what's going on in the world is an interesting starting point. And then when people want to play religious characters, and maybe have a different deity or something that's not in your initial concept or whatever it is, allowing the world to grow and expand and see how it reacts to these things is interesting. And like I said, I think there's nothing more interesting in storytelling than having gods that are just little sons of bitches. They're gonna screw stuff up. And how do then people feel if your gods are that way? And these clerics are devoted to these assholes running around everywhere. How does the general populace feel about that, right? We generally think of, hey, all right, well, let's go find a church and do something in there. And then the churches maybe in this world are like little buildings on the outskirts of town, or in the holler somewhere that would have to go and find because they're not socially acceptable.
The church is all the way over in Nobles Holler.
Where we holding all the money. But yeah, just what does it look like in your world? And don't be afraid to be a little divergent off of the classic. Okay, here are gods, here are the good ones, here are the evil ones, and here's the ones in between. And Lolth is going to make your life miserable, and blah 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 blah.
I think it's really interesting as a DM how often players will be like, I'm going to play a Tempest Cleric. All right, what god are you worshiping? Oh, I don't know. Well, why not? Like, what? Did you just want to be like, call lightning, bitches? That's why I'm a Tempest Cleric. Is that the only reason? Like, yeah, I think it's very interesting to ask the question, okay, who is your god and why? And I think it's a strong way to introduce players to like higher level thinking than just, I want to smite shit.
Yeah. And I think to Chuck's earlier point about, thinking about class last for a character, I think it's valid to just choose a class, like have a character and choose a class because whatever it is about that class you feel like is a good fit. And maybe you are on paper, it's a cleric, but maybe you're not calling them a cleric, and that's fine. And that might be a situation where you're like, well, there's not like a specific god I want to attribute them to. Maybe I'm running a paladin of waste management, but
Well, waste management is a god.
But that's Oath of the Crown, which I love that Oath of the Crown is not deity specific. And I like that they introduced that element because, I think you can run that sort type of a class without necessarily doing it explicitly. Like, I am a cleric, and so I follow a specific god. If you do want to run a cleric, which again, I love running clerics, so I often do. And you're calling them a cleric and they are a cleric, probably you should have some idea of what that god is and why. Because it's not a small thing for a character, as a character, for you to devote yourself to this and to have acquired all these abilities. Like, that's a stuff that takes time, and that's a major life choice. Like, there should be reasons why you have done this. So it should be a part of your character, if that's how you're going into it.
Yeah, to be sure, to be clear, I'll talk about things the way I do them. and I'm never going to recommend or suggest that you do things the crazy, messed up way that I do things. Okay, let's just get that straight.
Mhm.
The game that I played with Wainwright, where I met Wainwright, actually, I was playing a priest of the Raven Queen. I was not a cleric. I was a rogue. But I was far more devoted than any other character in the party that may have had religious connotations, right? Like I was a priest of the Raven Queen. I had some rogue, I had a little bit of sorcerer as well, but it was all about faith and cleansing the world of Drakenheim. Not a sponsor.
I had a character, I think it was Worst Goddamn Village Ever. I think it was in that one, who was very, very cleric flavored. Like she really kind of read as a cleric, but she was a zealot barbarian, actually, like in actual like class, like on paper.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that you chose barbarian.
I was actually required to.
Instructed you to, and almost to spite Rook and tweak his nose, you made the most cleric barbarian you possibly could.
And I have been looking for an excuse
y'all.
to play her again because I absolutely loved that character. I loved her rolling up like this supposed cleric of the Raven Queen, and then the reveal when she throws back her cloak, she's got a big ass morning star instead of a mace, and she's got like guns. She was awesome.
That was an interesting time. What was I playing? Amore, the Paladin of Love.
That was quite the adventure. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. You could certainly choose class first and then build story around because you want to play class and stuff like that. But and I think looking at and trying to figure out where your relationship with this god came in. Were you the 10th son of this, or daughter or spawn of this noble family, and they're like, well, we don't know what to do with you, we ain't got enough properties, just go off to the
church, the monastery, wherever.
And like, you didn't really want to be there, you didn't care about that, you just spent X number of years raised in this church devoted to whatever, so yeah, sure, I guess you got these things, and then maybe during the campaign you don't take any more levels in cleric, you start taking levels in something else that has piqued your interest.
I love that. I have such a issue with multi-class, such a bias against multi-classing in D&D, not in Baldur's Gate, but in D&D, I hate multi-classing, but I love multi-classing at later levels for narrative reasons. Like when you're like, you have changed over the course of this adventure and you reflect that by taking levels in a different class. I love that. That is the way to multi-class.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if I may, I think what you're trying to say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you like it in Baldur's Gate because it's a video game and you're just playing for the powers and you're not playing for the storytelling, and translating that, not 100%, but
she's
translating
mostly
that,
playing for murder.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Again, same thing. Whereas in the storytelling, you're trying to tell the story, and if you're trying to create this perfect multi-class to get this combo thing going on, it's not developed out of the story, and that's where it offends you, opposed to the...
Well, I think I just feel like multi-classing gets clunky very quickly, and in D&D, I feel like that detracts and it sort of almost makes you focus on the mechanics more because they're a little messier. Like you kind of have more to keep track of and whatever. Whereas the video game does that shit for you. You don't have to keep track of any of it. So it really doesn't matter. It's much more like seamless.
But the rogue who gets into, for whatever reason, trying to do things from the occult or whatever, and then, okay, well, maybe my next level
Yeah,
should
I
be
love
in
that.
Warlock or something.
When it makes
makes
sense for the character and where they're
Yeah.
going, that I love.
Yeah, but when it's
Mechanics and narrative that like reflect each other, love it.
Yeah, but when it's just, hey, I want these mechanics, so I'm going to take this level and that level, it definitely gets clunky. Anyway, Rook, you were going to say something.
I was just gonna say, when multi-classing, I highly recommend Monk and Sorcerer. They go very, very well together. Very well. If you want
Oh,
a
my.
completely useless character, go Monk Sorcerer. It is strongly useless.
I mean,
I was all
what's
like, I'm
the
gonna be
difference?
cool as hell and breathe fire. Yeah, that's badass, right? Huge line of fire. 2 points of damage. Fantastic.
I mean,
Save for half.
Mhm.
to be fair, you could just play a 2014 monk. I mean, and I'll say this again: we're getting a little off God topic here, but screw you, gods. Who cares? Strike me dead. All right,
Yeah,
mess
fuck
with
'em.
my camera.
All
Go
right.
ahead. I dare you. Um, the some of my favorite characters that I've ever played were 2014 monks that mechanically were not really good. Like they were not good in doing things and being as you get into an encounter or you try and use skills or whatever. They're not as quote unquote good. They're not going to roll as well and do as much damage and put out as many numbers. But running across water or up a wall to jump off a wall and try and grapple a griffin mid-air. What is cooler than the concept of a monk?
My character is super cool. Ineffective, but super cool.
What's more important? I'd rather be ineffective and
for
cool than crappy, character, no shallow character, no depth that is a one-shotting all the monsters. That's just not as much fun.
Yeah. I mean, let's just say last session, my character may have gotten the killing blow on the big monster, but Rook's character got a date.
true.
So who
That's
made
true.
the right choices, really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how the date goes. Has the date happened yet?
Not yet.
No.
Okay,
We're-
so
We
need to hold off
have
judgment.
a rain check to get hot chocolate at a
Hot chocolate
hot
date.
chocolate place. Mm-hmm.
Oh, if only the first that were the first time in the last year I've had characters in one of my campaigns go on a date to go and get hot chocolate. I don't know what it is.
In our last session, we had maybe one of the best role-playing moments that I've seen in the last 2 years. In our last session, it was very, very cool. It was super, super good. And it involved Violet's character and another character. And I was just like, oh wow, that's badass.
Yeah, I mean, good role play will open your eyes and say, "Oh, yeah, shit, that's why I'm doing this instead of playing a video game." The last thing that I had, getting back to our gods, I guess, since they haven't struck me dead yet. Let's go outside of D&D. What other things have you done and played with? And I know one of the things we were looking at and may do eventually in the future is a system, Gods of Old Appalachia or Gods of Appalachia. That is very, going to be very centric on not necessarily gods in a normal sense, but just like beings and beings of power and that sort of stuff.
I played a game, a live action game called Gods.
Mhm.
And it was a very interesting game, and man, did people hate me. But that generally
That could be just
generally
about
how
any
that
game.
goes in any LARP setting for sure. But it's interesting because it starts out and like the first session, there are these cards with power on them, right? And I guess you have to predetermine which characters are going to be greater gods. And then they're all dealt out the powers. And the more of one element, if you will, that you can get a hold of, the more power that you'll end up having or control over all of that, right? Well, I dealt out my powers and got my powers and ended up with all of the fire cards. So I was the god of fire. And then in order to create children, you had to give some of your power away to them, right? Like you could create a lesser deity by giving them 1 point of fire or whatever, right? But then you have less of the power to do the 5th level powers and stuff like that. It was a very interesting game. But then the second session, after the card dealing is done, the second session is world creation. And there is a winner to the game at the end, and it becomes somewhat of a board game as there's a world that gets created and shaped, and the people with Earth can build Earth up out of the sea and all of these things. And of course I could volcano and destroy the world basically. But one of the traits, the flaws, if you will, I guess technically it was a flaw, I thought it was fantastic, was called magnanimous. And what it meant was if anybody paid the mana cost for me to cast a spell, I had to do it. I was like, this is fantastic.
They can just
this
request.
Is great. Yeah, they can request me to use a power and I can't say no. All I do is destroy the world. This is fantastic. You're going to pay the mana cost for me to blow shit up? That sounds great. I'm going to take this for sure. And yeah, it was rough. It was rough for sure. Oh, it was so much fun though. So that was a game. It's an interesting game. I'd have to see if I can find it because it was a long time ago that I played it. But it was a cool game centered around gods and very, very Greek mythology based type of game. What else?
I was just thinking about, first of all, please look that up because I'm super curious about like the structure of that game. But
we'll post it on
in our Discord. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was
I can
thinking
find
about actually 10 Candles and how even though there are no like explicit gods in 10 Candles, in the text of the game there is the abstract concept of them, the sort of ominous thing that is making life bad for you. But I think
not Rook.
I think even more than just the them of the text, just something about like the tension and the role of the unknown in 10 Candles prompts players to bring a lot of these sort of abstract ideas, whether it's
of faith in general.
Spirits, gods, demons, aliens, like all these different kinds of things people bring to it, just trying to make sense of like the weird unknowns. And so I think that is actually a really interesting kind of game to explore those concepts because they're not laid out for you. Like, this is what they are. Here is your pantheon. Here are the gods, and here is what they do. Like, there is none of that. There is very specifically no information about what's going on, and you have to fill in like what's happening. And I think that happens in such interesting ways in that game.
The Cthulhu is like that a lot as well, right? It's less about finding that relationship with your gods and more trying to stay sane, right? Because the stuff is ultimately, scary. It's ultimately, incomprehensible, something on that scale. But the idea of gods not as like beings but more as powers out there is also great in a lot of games. The things you can't quite understand and you just got to try and vibe and feel with, and that allows them not to be questioned or whatever. No, they
Mhm.
just are. They just exist, and
Yeah.
oh, well,
I think I did mention last time that I am playing in a game that is set in a homebrew world, where there aren't specific deities. They're just like the powers of good and the powers of evil, and they're just kind of like an abstract force. It's not like a thing or a person or like it's just a kind of force that exists in the world. It's not something you can talk to or whatever. Like it's a very different conception of what the gods are, while still like you still, if you're a cleric, you're a cleric of the powers of good, or you're a cleric of the powers of evil, or whatever. And that's what you derive your magic from and that sort of thing. But it's not like a thing you can talk to. It's like
No.
deriving your power from like magnetism, like just like a force that exists, you know.
Yeah.
Like it's
yeah.
not the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, imagine a world where the power is not necessarily good, evil. It's just power,
Mhm.
and how you use it is what makes for good, evil, when and whatever. And sure, that makes it more interesting. And again, relationship. What's your relationship with that power?
Mhm.
How does using that power make you feel?
Yeah.
Therapy sessions are fantastic during D&D.
Yeah. And so again, like bottom line for me, like it is super interesting to explore all the different ways that gods and those kinds of powers can manifest in a game, and how they can have a role in your story or not have a role or be super involved. But for me personally, bottom line, like it's the thing I care about most is what the character thinks about
Mhm.
that god or power or whatever. Like, what do they think about it? Why does it matter to them, if it does at all? That to me is like the most important.
Yeah, from a player perspective, I think that relationship is really important and helpful in you're trying to find the story, right? Because as you play a campaign, I'm playing a campaign right personally, and I feel when I'm discovering what the story is, what the arc is for my character as the game progresses, as I'm influenced by the other player characters, as I'm influenced by what's going on in the campaign, as I'm influenced by my relationship with with higher powers or lower powers or medium level powers or whatever powers there may be out there. That finding that story is the important part. And if a relationship with God, any God, is part of who you are as a character, that's got to be central to finding that story and how that evolves. And that, in the end, that's really what's important. That's where it becomes interesting, when you're finding that story, when you're interacting with the other characters, and you're developing along with them. And you know what? You see a lot of that happen a month from now in the House of Ill Repute when
We
it
do?
starts. Yeah, there's a ton of that.
You'll have to watch it and see.
Indeed. But until then,
I'd like to watch the de-evolution of my character.
choices were made.
The interesting
Let's just
journey.
say
Look,
choices
they're all
were
on a
made.
journey. They're all on a real journey, is what it comes down to, in a very personal sense as well as in a broader sense.
Oh, it was so good. It's so much fun. You guys are gonna love it for sure.
It is great.
So fun. Oh
Yes.
my.
But until next week, when you will be less disappointed, you won't see us just prattling on and talking next week. We will be playing an actual game.
Yes.
Back to that for a great cause. But until then, get yourself a fun beverage, whatever you enjoy. And remember, hit points are not required to enjoy a tasty beverage. Night, everybody.
Night, everybody.